Hi, everybody, and welcome to the beginning of another week and the end of July, and end of another month. And so time rolls on. Well, today I'd like us to think about pacemakers. A pacemaker is a very useful medical device because what it does is if somebody's got a dicky heart and the rhythm's going out a bit, a pacemaker will keep that heartbeat regular at a good, healthy rhythm so the heart can function the way it should. And another thing that the pacemaker does is it helps the chambers of the heart to work in sync with each other so that the blood gets efficiently pumped around the body. A very useful thing. But there are other kinds of pacemakers as well. The Tour de France has just been completed, that amazing cycling event. Well, there are about 20 or more teams that you get in the Tour de France race, and each team has got 8 riders. And one of the riders will be designated to be the pacemaker, and he will set out at the speed that he thinks his team should be going at, and he'll also help their champion rider to be able to get into his slipstream so that he doesn't expend quite so much energy, and then when the time comes, their main rider can slip ahead and maybe even win the stage. It happens in marathon track events as well. Long distance track events, you'll get one of a team that'll run out and set the pace, make everybody else tired, and then their champion runner will come through afterwards. It's quite strategic. And then, of course, if you're running the comrades, they have this thing called the bus, and the buses are usually at the back. And what happens is they run together, and then there's often one of them that will call out 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever else they do to keep everybody in rhythm. And they set a pace that even though they're not great runners at the back, they can nevertheless finish the race in the bus. Well, as Christians, we are called to live in step with God. And I'd like to read you a verse from Galatians 5, verse 25. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. And living by the Spirit means following that impression that God puts on our hearts when things need to be done or when they mustn't be done, and the way He guides us inwardly into those things that He wants us to do. And so, how do we keep in step with God? Well, it's a lifelong learning curve. But one of the things is we've got to have time with God. We need to spend time talking with Him, waiting on Him, listening to Him, reading His Word. And as we do this from day to day, so we will be able to keep more in step with God. Often we become sort of anxiously busy. And sometimes we actually begin to lag behind and we feel life is just dragging along and it doesn't seem to have any zing about it. But when we're living in step with the Spirit, then there is a flow in our lives that God gives to us. So sometimes we need to be moving actively and fast and busily, and other times it's just time to step back and allow things to settle down and to rest. I love a quote that I read from a famous Christian writer called A.B. Simpson of an earlier generation, and this is what he said: keep still and stop your restless working until God begins to work. In other words, keep your eye on God. Keep your ear open to Him. Watch out for when He starts working so that you can keep in step with Him. But don't just try to take it on by yourself. He also said, do nothing that God does not Himself command you to do. So if you feel that urge, you say, God is wanting me to do this, do it. But if there's no certainty in yourself, then rather not. As an old teacher of mine used to say, when in doubt, leave it out. And so when God wants us to speed up, He will urge us along. And when He wants us to slow down, He will give us that sense. It's time to rest. This is a learning curve. And as we go from day to day and week to week and month to month in our life with the Lord, He will teach us how to keep in step with Him. Because when we are in step with Him, there's a peace and there's a joy and there's even an excitement at times about being able to do what we believe He is calling us to do. May God help you as you go into this week to keep in step. Don't go too far ahead, don't lag behind, and God goes with you, your pacemaker. Bye for now.